series is frequently asked questions: how do you jack up the Supersport? The car has a plastic bottom and a fiberglass rear diffuser, so it's fairly difficult to find the points to jack the car up. We've decided to do this video using one jack and some wood that we've cut into 18-inch lengths to make it easier to get the jack under the car and find those solid points to jack the car up. What we've gathered to make this job as easy as possible is we've cut 2x10 into 18-inch lengths. We've got 12 of those cut. We've got a 2x4 cut at 32. It could also be cut to 36. It's not that important. We've got one cut at 48. We've got 4 good quality snap-on jack stands. One of the key features of this stand is that the 2x4 will fit between these little notches to make it good and steady. We've got a lightweight aluminum lightning jack, and we've fabricated or cut a little piece of wood, covered it in some tape, and that just makes the pad of the jack flat with the bottom of the car. Using these pieces, it'll be very easy to jack the Supersport up. The first step in jacking up the Supersport is to roll the car onto 2 of the pieces of wood. So we roll the car back and sitting on a 2x10 on each rear wheel. So now Eric and me will be rolling the jack under, finding the jacking point, and that jacking point is going to be at the intersection of where the main roll hoop comes down and meets the square tube box that forms the bottom of the chassis. We're jacking it up, jack it up high enough so that we can fit 3 pieces of wood under each wheel. Okay. We also right now have the car in gear so that it can't roll forward or backwards. Now we're going to do the same thing on the other side. All right, now we're going to jack up the left side of the car just like we jacked up the other side. And Eric actually has the floor jack a bit forward of the main roller hoop, but he's making sure he catches the main frame rail under the car. And that's just so we get a little better balance front to rear. The other thing to note at this point is that the floor jack is able to get under the car because we've got that 2x10 at the rear of the car. If we were to use a jack that was a little low profile jack, and they actually sell a lower profile jack at Harbor Freight. It's a 68050 jack. It's a 2-ton jack. It's a very low profile jack. And now, that Harbor Freight jack can actually get under the car and get to the main frame rail without putting the wood under the back. So now we've got the car on 3 pieces of 2x10 on all 4 corners. We're ready to jack up one end to the other. All right, now we're going to jack up the front of the car. Eric's going to go under the front, and he's going to place the jack pad right under the bulkhead, or the main part of the chassis that's just aft of where the crush box attaches, and that's a very strong point in the chassis. When we get the car up in the air, we'll show you with the camera exactly where he's jacking it up. And then we'll place the jack stands with the 2x4 right on the line that goes across the chassis where the main frame rail goes across and where the A-pillars attach to that main frame rail. Okay, before we go down, we're going to show you with the camera exactly where we've got these items placed. All right, to jack up the front of the car, we've placed our wood, that's our jack pad, on this main frame rail. Runs right aft of this seam in the plastic. Right in the center of the car, right on this main frame rail. Now the 2x4s that are straddling going across the 2 jack stands is going to be basically straddling that seam that you see in the plastic back there. The 2 pieces of plastic butt essentially on the middle of the main tube that runs across the car that the two A-pillars come down to. So that's one of the strongest parts of the car. So go ahead and lower the jack. Okay. Now we're ready to go jack up the back of the car. Okay, now we're going to jack up the rear of the car. Jacks can go under a very strong point of the chassis where two frame rails meet in the X. When we're under the car, we'll show you where that is. The other thing that's important when jacking up a car, we've got it on the front jack stands, and we want to make sure that the jack rolls so it doesn't pull the car forward or backwards off the jack stands. So we're on good, clean ground. Eric's got his hand on the car. He's making sure that the jack stand's rolling and not the car. When we get up high enough, we'll put the jack stands underneath. Show you where we put those. On the rear of the car, we jack it up so that the pad for the jack is under the cross member that runs just aft of the access panel. There's a cross member that runs across here, a diagonal that comes back like this, and a diagonal that goes back like that on the other side. So it's a very strong point. Jacking right there through the fiberglass, picking the car up there. The jack stands in the wood we place just forward of the seam that is the seam between the plastic and the rear diffuser. That's also under a very strong cross member in the chassis, and it also allows us access to remove the diffuser, which we frequently do for a lot of service. So we'll go ahead and lower the car. You can see the jack was right here through the fiberglass, right up to that very strong part of the car. So the car is now securely on all the jack stands. We're ready to work on the car. All right, you've got all the work done on your Supersport. You're ready to go back on track. You would do essentially exactly the opposite of what we just did. We jack up the back of the car, raise it up a little bit, remove the jack stands, put our 3 pieces of wood on each side under the rear wheels, go to the front of the car, jack it up, remove the jack stands, put the 3 pieces of wood under each wheel, lower the car down. The car will be sitting there on 3 pieces of wood on each corner. Then we come to the side, jack up one side of the car, remove the wheels, or the wood under the front, 2 of the pieces of wood under the rear, leaving it on one. Lower it down, do the same thing on the other side, remove the 3 in the front, the 2 in the rear, lower it down, and then simply roll the car off the wood. Now if you had that real low profile jack that they sell at Harbor Freight, you would be able to go straight to the ground. So essentially following all these steps is a very safe way to raise and lower your Supersport. You'll never damage the car doing it this way.